Will you save me a seat? Well, welcome. You guys doing okay this evening? Oh, that's encouraging. You guys okay this evening? Good, good. Hey guys, it's Chase Nunn's birthday. Let's hear it for Chase. Yeah. All right, brother. Welcome to the 40 Club. Okay. Now, how old are you, man? 33, basically 40. Yes, basically 40. I'm kidding. Just super glad that you're here tonight. Obviously, tonight's going to be very informal, but I hope it's going to be really helpful and encouraging. Let me say two things. We'll pray and we'll let Ross loose because we want to give him the full time that he has tonight, but then also give plenty of time for Q&A as well. But just incredibly appreciative. I've already expressed this to him and his wife. They live in Minnesota, and it was sort of an off chance, connected with sort of his background and their experience through an article that he was part of from the Gospel Coalition back in 2024. Ended up being the most read article on the website that year, and just on the off chance, I was like, any chance you want to come to Kentucky and just help us kind of talk about this in a faithful way? And he's been incredibly gracious, and so very, very thankful that you would come down here from Minnesota. So praise God for that. Yeah, and let me just say this really quick as well. I realize that this is this topic hits very close to home for people. You know, I mean, sports are a big part of our lives. In a place like Kentucky, you know, especially in a small rural town where there's not a lot to do. You know, life in a lot of ways recreationally revolves around the ball field. You know what I'm saying? And so we recognize that. And so just as a pastor, I've been a little bit nervous coming into tonight because I didn't want folks to think that we were coming with an agenda or an angle. But really there's two reasons that I felt compelled to move forward with this in a way, again, that I hope is helpful and encouraging. One is that our own family has been navigating this for the last 15 years. You know, Eleanor played two sports in high school. Hudson played two sports, was really good at one, okay at the other. And just, you know, as you guys know, as he got older and better, had more opportunities, and those opportunities started falling on Wednesdays and Sundays. So my point is that we've been navigating this as a family for the last 15 years. And I wish that someone would have had this conversation with us 15 years ago. So really my heart is that this conversation would serve us. That's really, it's not coming with an agenda. It's really to serve us and really to find support as brothers and sisters in the same family of faith, because the cultural tide is super strong. You know what I'm saying? And so the personal side is one side of it. The other reason is pastoral. And what I mean by that is over the last 4 or 5 years in particular, I can't tell you how many conversations that I've had with moms and dads in our church that are expressing sort of this tension of, man, we know that sports are really good. You know, like there's a lot that our kids can learn. They're a lot of fun. You know, we're not talking about a dad going out playing golf by himself on Sunday morning and just neglecting his family. You know, the other thing that makes it feel hard is that, you know, families are doing this together. And in a very real sense, this is, you know, I'm doing this for my kids. You know what I'm saying? But yet feeling the pressure of what's expected of us time-wise, financially, all these things are a little bit, I mean, I'm just saying from the conversations that I've had with lots of moms and dads in our church, it's like you feel a little bit backed into a corner. Like there's no good choice, it feels like sometimes. And so yeah, we just want to talk about it, you know, and hopefully it's helpful. And if not, then it's been awesome serving on staff here the last 10 years. And see y'all on the flip side. No, I'm teasing. Let me pray, and we're going to invite Ross to come up and share. God, we love you. We thank you so much for today. And Lord, we give you the time that you have given us. Lord, everything that we have, it is a gift from you. Every good gift, every perfect gift comes down from the Father of lights, within whom there is no variance or shadow of turning. Lord, you are an eternal God, Lord, that is good. And Lord, everything that we have comes from your hand. And Lord, we want to respond to your goodness by offering back to you what you've already given us. The time that you've given us, the resources that you've given us, the children that you've given us. Lord, we want to honor you in all of these things. Lord, thank you so much for Ross and his wife and their willingness to come all this way, really to have a conversation with one local church in South Central Kentucky. I'm really humbled by that and appreciative for that. And so, Lord, help us to, Lord, benefit from the time together tonight. We pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen. Will you guys welcome Ross Douma?
Thank you, Pastor Jordan. Really appreciate the kind words and just the opportunity to be here with you this evening to talk about a topic that, if we're really honest with one another, there's some tension associated with it. And so thank you for the invite. I am deeply humbled to be here, and thank you so much for the hospitality and the kindness. We have worked diligently over the past year to try to intersect our respective schedules to make this work, and praise the Lord, we were able to do that. You have a gorgeous state. My wife and I have spent the last 3 days navigating through it. We started with the Creation Museum and worked our way to the Ark Encounter. Yesterday we drove, I think it was the Bluegrass Parkway. Ooh, can only imagine how beautiful that looks in the fall when the leaves are turning. But there are so many wonderful things about the state of Kentucky that we have loved the last 72 hours. Incidentally, the last time we were in Kentucky was for an AAU basketball tournament years and years ago, and more on that later. But just really grateful for the invite to be here tonight, so thank you very much. A little bit more about myself, and not because I'm vain and think you care, but I do think it's important that you know a little bit about the context from which I am speaking these remarks tonight. I graduated from Northwestern College in 1995. Northwestern College is a Christian college in Iowa. I majored in education, history, and health, and also played on the men's basketball team there during my span there. Upon graduation in 95, I served in K-12 education for 14 years. I was a history teacher primarily, coached 4 different sports, and then towards the end of that tenure, I got my master's degree and moved into administration. In 2009, I had the opportunity to move from the high school level to the collegiate level and began serving as the head men's basketball coach at Dordt University in Iowa. It's an NAIA school, and they had a strong tradition with basketball. I did that for 9 years, and then moved into the director of athletics role there, and so all told was at Dordt for 15 years. The past 3 years, Sean and I have resided in the Twin Cities in Minneapolis, where I serve as president of a Christian school organization, association there of various Christian schools that dot the metro in Minneapolis. And so we attend Bethlehem Baptist Church there. Some of you maybe have heard of Desiring God Ministries. That's based there with Bethlehem Baptist, and we really enjoy our time there. So over 30 years of different experiences in education, K-12, higher ed, urban, metropolitan, rural, Christian, public. And so the Lord has provided us with a plethora of different experiences to really take a look at the landscape of sports. And I've always been fascinated with the sociology of athletics. And I think part of that comes from really my own study of history. We're kind of pseudo-sociologists at heart. And in particular, youth athletics. They have fascinated me. I had my own intimate experience as a father. And then when I became a college basketball coach, I would move to various travel or AAU tournaments and partake of those. And when I became athletic director, I stepped back a little bit to take a look at the broader collegiate athletic scene there. And so that's where I humbly come before you here this evening to talk about this wonderful topic of sports. Sure, get my clicker. There we go. This is us and our family today. We have 3 kids. We have 2 additional children by marriage. And all told, we have 5 grandchildren. This was taken about a year ago. And we have picked up 1 grandchild since then. I know my wife looks much too young to be a grandmother, but she is. Our children played multiple sports in high school. Our 2 youngest played basketball, golf, cross country. Our daughter played volleyball, and our oldest basketball. All 3 of them have played or are playing sports in college, and we're fortunate to be a part of some very successful high school basketball teams, a number of state championships and state runners-up, and so we've been able to be exposed to a number of things so far as that's concerned. Like any family, we have our scars, but by the grace of God, here we are, and this is us today. This is us 20 years ago, roughly in 2006, and those are our 3 kids. If you would have told us then that we would eventually remove our children from youth sports, we would never have believed you. It was something that really wasn't part of our makeup. And excuse me if I take a look at notes from time to time. I was here this morning for your 10:30 service, and Pastor Ray, what a wonderful, gifted man. I don't think he looked down at his notes but 2 or 3 times the entire sermon. That is not going to be the case tonight. I will glance down from time to time at my notes, so forgive me. But in 2006, Sean and I were young parents. We were in our early 30s. We loved the Lord, and we loved sports. And I was, in 2006, the head boys basketball coach at Chicago Christian High School. I was also the assistant principal at that time. And our oldest was in 4th grade. And like a lot of athletic-minded families, we believed that the natural thing to do with him was to have him participate in traveling basketball. It was a societal norm, I guess you would say, for many families who really enjoyed sports. And for us, we're not really trying to idolize sports at all. We felt that we had our priorities in line. We were simply trying to provide our oldest son and subsequently our daughter a few years later with opportunities. And I think that probably is the most ambiguous word, right? Opportunities. What does that really mean when we talk about opportunities? The goodness of sports, though, is something I want to touch on before we talk a little bit more about travel ball. I believe in the goodness of sports, and I especially appreciate what Paul talks about in Romans 12, verses 1 and 2, where he talks about Christians and everything about them is an act of worship. And if we believe that as Christians, and we do, then we believe that how we play is ultimately how we worship our Creator. And I also really appreciate sports from the standpoint that the Christian values and virtues that they cultivate, and we could name them off: collaboration, discipline. We talk about sacrifice before self, team before self, and go on and on. Those are very difficult to replicate in a classroom or a similar setting. It's just really hard to do that. And athletics really provides that raw intimacy that very few other arenas really offer. And so when we take a look at sports, and youth sports in particular, they really offer transformational benefits that few other places can really offer. And it just really makes for a wonderful experience that way, if done Christianly. This is a picture of our son's final year playing sports in Chicago. He was part of an AAU travel team his 7th grade year. He started in 4th grade and began moving through different teams to a 7th grade year there. We loved it. It was a wonderful experience. I was an assistant coach on this team. We would drive into the city a couple times a week, and we just loved interacting with these players and these families. And there were many things that we enjoyed and took away from it, and we look back on and say, that was absolutely wonderful for our family. And so understand that I don't come here tonight as being someone who's anti-travel ball, but rather somebody who is really pro-family and trying to help younger families navigate the uniqueness of youth sports where we made mistakes along the way. Are any of you Louisville Cardinal basketball fans? Are there any in here? Or are we too far south? Okay, we got somebody that's willing to. The guy, number 5, top left, he played for Louisville. That's Wayne Blackshear. Wayne played for Louisville, I think, 2012, 13, 14, 15. I do know from being here this morning there are Kentucky basketball fans here because there were many people that were wearing that garb this morning. The guy in the middle there, number 30, is Anthony Davis, who played at the University of Kentucky at some time there. We had a great time. It was a wonderful experience working with these families and touring with them and interacting with them and seeing the world from a different lens. Again, many derivatives from the youth sports scene. I do want to mention what we call them, and Sean and I talked about this notion of the slow drift. And I shared a little bit ago that we started when our son was in 4th grade. And when he was in 4th grade, make sure it's clicking up there. When we initially started, it was pretty innocent. It was 1 practice a week. We would play maybe 1 regional tournament once or twice a month. And for us, we were able to, at that time, attend church and still have the church at the focal point and have youth sports work around it and also school sports work around it. As he got a little bit older, that cadence began to intensify. We played more games. The travel distances were longer. The weekends were longer. The hotel stays were longer. We would compromise church because the fact that we were a long ways from our home church. The costs were exceedingly higher. And it was something that for each passing year, we didn't necessarily catch ourselves, but over a period of time, we were able to really ask ourselves, what had changed? And for us, our love for the Lord hadn't changed. Our love for sports had not changed. But for us, what really had changed was our calendar. And when we did an audit of our calendar and we stepped back and we realized what was taking place, our calendar was telling us a lot more than what our heart and mind was telling us. And that is, we were gone an awful lot. And we were compromising a number of things along the way so far as that drift was concerned. I want to talk too a little bit about the other costs associated with what we experienced there. I think one of the things that we talk about was family rhythms disappeared. The dinners and suppers at night became much more infrequent. AAU tournaments began to replace family vacations. No longer were we going to places like the Creation Museum or the Ark Encounter, but we were sitting in gyms and sitting in ball diamonds. Again, not all bad, but it was something that began to slowly replace. The other thing that we noticed too was our children's bodies were not being refreshed. Right? There's this necessary downtime that needs to take place, and that just was not happening as you were overlapping the school sports season many times with the travel season. And so it was just really difficult to refresh those bodies. Church became optional at times. There was a subtle but significant paradigm shift that began to occur. Initially, it was, how can we make sports work around church, to how can we make church work around sports? The anchor had moved for us. And it wasn't something that we caught ourselves initially, and it took time for us to do that, but it was important. And we even justified it a little bit. Well, we were having devotions with our family in the hotel room, or we're meeting with other families in the hotel lobby. But in Hebrews 10, the Lord commands us to worship in community, to worship corporately. And that just wasn't happening at the level that it should have. We were tired. We were tired. These AAU tournaments, travel team tournaments would start on Friday, oftentimes Friday night. We would play on Saturday morning, sometimes Saturday afternoon, sometimes Saturday night, and then Sunday morning, because you had to, in a tournament, it has to stretch 3 days. If it doesn't stretch 3 days, there's not money and revenue to be generated by the tournament organizers. And that's very strategic. And we know that youth sports is a billion-dollar industry. They're very organized and they're very strategic. And so we would play Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We would come back on Monday. We were exhausted. By Wednesday, we got our legs underneath us again, and then we would repeat again on Friday. And we would do this for seasons. It was very exhausting, very taxing for us. And the other thing that became somewhat noticeable was our children were beginning to lose a little bit of their joy. They wouldn't say it. They couldn't say it. Right? We were investing time. We were investing money. And in athletics, you teach a little bit about grit, and so you need to work through it. But the questions were moving from when do we get a play to what time is our next game to when do we have to play? And those were the red flags that we never noticed along the way, that looking back, we probably should have been able to pick up on. What were our kids really telling us by their questions as they go? They began to lose their joy in that regard. What does the research tell us today about youth athletics? And eventually, after getting my master's in educational administration to become an administrator, I went to get a doctorate, and I did extensive research on the concept of burnout. And I'll talk about burnout in a little bit. And I will say this, the concept of burnout is very much overused. Very people really hit burnout. They just become quite exhausted and tired, and they categorize it as burnout. But burnout is part of the ordeal for sure. Early specialization. More and more injuries are occurring because of play. However, there are more youngsters who are playing today than ever before, so we also have to balance that as well. The number of injuries due to early specialization, they are going up, but the number of athletes who are playing at a much earlier age is also increasing as well. And so it's really hard to determine and ascertain and triangulate that data as to what that means. What we do know is that there are overuse injuries that are occurring at a much higher rate. Little league elbow, little league shoulder in particular. Unfortunately, we see some boys have Tommy John at a much earlier age. When I was at Dordt, I taught a class on youth sports. And we had our class read a book, Until It Hurts. And in that book, Tommy John, the famous pitcher whose more infamous surgery is named after him, talked about youth sports. And yes, this was years ago because Tommy John pitched years ago for the Yankees and Dodgers. But Tommy John believed that he could take a boy at the age of 19 who's never thrown a baseball and still get him to the major leagues if that arm, that DNA, had enough voltage in it. In other words, he did not believe in having a youngster being able to pitch all the innings beginning at age 10 through, and that gave that person a competitive advantage. For what that's worth. Overuse injuries, we know that girls are blowing out ACLs at a much higher rate, non-contact through soccer. We live in the northern suburbs of Minneapolis, a suburb called Blaine. It's the fastest growing suburb in Minnesota. It used to be an old sod farm. And what they have done now is they have laid out 40 different soccer fields side by side, 40 different ones. And on every weekend, you have girls and boys ages 7, 8, all the way up to 17, 18 that are playing. And the number of touches that a 8-year-old girl and an 8-year-old boy don't get playing 7 and 8-year-old soccer is really high. But unfortunately, what we do see is the number of girls who blow out ACLs due to non-contact injuries there. I mentioned burnout. Burnout, hard to quantify. But one thing we are able to quantify is that peak dropout age is 12. for youth sports. Peak dropout age is 12. And it's a sad irony when we step back and we think about it. The adults who are trying to lengthen careers, get them started when they're younger so they can be more effective at the high school age, so perhaps they can garner a college scholarship, are actually contributing to an earlier exit from sports. That's what the data shows. And so that's the sad irony when we talk about burnout. And I'm going to come back and talk about scholarships here in a little bit, but college scholarships are part of the drive for some folks when it comes to travel sports. Most college scholarships are partial. Most college scholarships, athletic scholarships, are partial. They're very nominal. It is much easier today to secure a college athletic scholarship than it was 5 years ago, and for sure 10 years ago. Many private schools are now implementing what's called sub-varsity or JV programs at the collegiate level to try to increase enrollment. And so they'll offer nominal scholarships, maybe $2,000 to $5,000, to entice that person, that young person at the age of 17, 18, to play collegiate athletics so that they come to their campus and after a year or two they filter out. College scholarships are easier to obtain, but they're very much partial and in many cases nominal. And I'll talk more about that later because of course it varies a little bit by level and of course by sport as well. But I do want to take a little bit of time and share with you my observations as an athletic director. When I served as an athletic director at Dordt for 6 years, I also happened to have the opportunity to serve on many conference and national organization committees. And we really took a look at a lot of topics associated with that. And one of the things that we would talk about often is, what is the profile of an ideal newcomer coming into collegiate athletics? What does that look like? And a lot of us really landed on that we would love for newcomers to have played multiple sports in high school, to have very fresh bodies, and to be really fresh in mind and have a joyful demeanor that really exudes from them. They're not worn down by years and years of specialization. From the NCAA 2 level to the NCAA 3 level to junior college to NAIA, playing collegiate sports at those levels is about staying engaged in the program. It's about persevering. Talent usually begins to slip to the wayside, and perseverance and endurance really becomes more necessary. And a fresh body, a motivated body, an inspired person can stand the test of time through 4 years of a collegiate athletic program as opposed to somebody who's worn down from years of specialization that way. Adjustments to collegiate athletics. Having observed over about 2,500 student athletes come through Dordt during my time there, it became very obvious that student athletes who played multiple sports in high school and who managed their own schedules, learned to manage their own schedules, gave themselves the greatest opportunity to make the smoothest transition from high school to collegiate athletics, because the greatest predictor of making a transition from high school to collegiate athletics is not simply talent, it's maturity. It's maturity. Throughout the recruiting process, coaches are going to tell parents and this prospective student athlete a number of things. But after mom and dad drop off said student athlete, and the pictures are done in the dorms, and everybody says goodbye, and mom and dad leave campus, it's game on. And at that point in time, how well equipped and nurtured is that particular child to navigate things by themselves for the very first time? That will give them the greatest opportunity to be successful, which is why I really believe that parents matter more than club or travel or AAU programs. When I talk about club, travel, AAU, it's one and the same. We have high school, we have city rec, and then we have travel, AAU, and club. They're really one and the same. But again, after watching and observing over thousands of student athletes come onto campus, I've really come to believe that the greatest competitive advantage that a student athlete possesses is not the club team that they played for, but it is the parents who raised them. The parents who raised them. Character before performance, identity before achievement, resilience before recognition, and a faith before athletics. If I had to go back and do it all over again, we would do things differently with our children in that regard, and we would absolutely give them a greater opportunity with their high school teams and really dial back with that area there. Sure, yep. Character before performance, identity before achievement, resilience before recognition, and faith before athletics. And those four things, very difficult. At the age of 35, when we were parenting, we could have never done it. Maybe we weren't mature enough to do it. We didn't see it. We didn't have people that were helping us do this. And we meant well for our kids, but we stubbed our toe many times because those things would shift. And if we're honest, and Sean and I will tell you this, for our children to be asked to play on more competitive AAU teams as time persisted, we looked at that a little bit as parental validation. We did. Like, oh, we must be doing something right as parents. No, we weren't. We know that now, 20 years later. But we did. We felt that we're doing something right. And so it was just a little bit of a sucking into the quicksand that we weren't able to catch ourselves on. This didn't work, sorry. I must have got talking and I forgot to hit my clicker. I want to talk about a biblical framework and what this really means. And I think we really get at Matthew 6, verse 33, but seek first his kingdom and his righteousness. Right? What is shaping our family's worship is a question that we probably failed to ask as parents when we were in our 30s during this time. Who is discipling our children? Like, who really is discipling our children? And the answer is your calendar. I mean, it really is our calendar. You know, who gets the opportunity to spend time with your kids in that regard? And lastly, who are we trying to raise? What is it? Do we have the maturity, and we didn't, to play the long game and say, we're trying to raise disciples of Jesus who can go and reclaim and make a redemptive impact on society versus trying to sire a Division I athlete? That's kind of where we got off the rails just a little bit there. Because all three of our kids played collegiate athletics. They were going to play collegiate athletics whether we got them involved in AU sports, travel sports, or not. That's not the case with everyone, and I'll touch on that here in just a second as well. But this biblical framework, what is it that we're really trying to do with the youngsters the Lord has entrusted to us for a short period of time? I spoke at a dad's group about 4 months ago, and when we really reduce our role as parents, we really primarily parent for about 15 years. Yes, we're always going to be parents. I understand that. And our 34 and 31-year-old will say, you're still parenting us. Yeah, and we're going to do that until the Lord takes one of us home. But when you really look at parenting, that time span from when they're about 2 to about 18, 19 is where you have that opportunity to really parent them well. Who is really helping you do that? Is what this begs at. And I would like just to talk a little bit about just some practical recommendations. And it's just one person. That's just me. And my worldview is shaped upon the experiences that I've had. Yours are on the experiences that you've had. No two families are the same. And I'll talk more about that here in just a little bit. Every dynamic is just a little bit different. But just some things to maybe think about. delay specialization as long as you can. AAU is necessary for Anthony Davis and Wayne Blackshear to land at the University of Louisville and the University of Kentucky. Absolutely necessary for them to do that. Didn't need to do it at the age of 10, 11, 12, and 13. It wouldn't have made any difference. But when you get to the point where you have an athlete, probably 15 or 16, and they just have a uniqueness to them, yeah, it's probably necessary. That's why I said I'm not anti-travel ball or anti-AAU ball. There is a place for it. But if we can delay specialization, we're giving that particular student athlete the greatest opportunity to avoid the stress fractures and the overuse injuries and just more joy that's associated with sports. Play multiple sports. Play multiple sports because you are interacting with different coaches. Your child is being coached by different coaches. They're interacting with different families. Our daughter moved from volleyball her sophomore year of high school to cross country, and she became a collegiate runner as a result of making that transition. There's a lot of differences between healthy cultures from sport to sport. Cross country and track are beautiful. Right? Everybody is cheering for one another. I come from the basketball world. It's a little more cutthroat. Right? It's just a little bit different that way. And so to be able in high school and middle school for sure, to be able to be exposed to that is so healthy in many regards. We do have to make a concerted effort to give our children rest. We have to, because they're not going to want to slow down. And a lot of times the coaches of the various high school and AAU programs, guilty as charged, aren't going to try to schedule that in as much either. I don't know how it's in Kentucky, but some states have gone to dead weeks. Now, does Kentucky do that? When is your dead week in Kentucky? Just ended. Yep. Iowa's is coming up this week. And it's just wonderful. It's just a little bit of hands off. And I understand that, because of that, there's still travel sports and stuff that are going to have their hands on it. But at least there's a concerted effort. But as a parent, how can we give the ligaments, the tendons, the muscles a little bit of a reprieve for a period of time? Playing multiple sports does that naturally, but I think we also have to be cognizant of it as well. Protecting Sundays whenever possible, not because it's legal, not because we want to be legalistic, but because we understand that there is absolute joy and there is just benefits that are derived from community and corporate worship to be able to get there. There's just a lot of really good things that are associated with it. And I just really appreciate what Pastor Jordan is doing there. I mean, he authentically cares about his congregation to have this discussion. That's his job. I mean, he's worried about the souls of his people. And to have this conversation is really, really bountiful. Not everybody is going to agree on this. When I wrote this article in 2024, I had so many people who would walk up and say, "Thanks so much for writing this." And they never changed a bit about their habits because it was always somebody else who needed to be fixed, right? I get it. And then there were other people who approached me and were really pushing back on it. Fine. I'm not saying I have all of the answers, but I really want to provoke thought processes so far as this is concerned. And protecting Sundays, I think we need to do that. The last thing I would say is encourage and structured play. Our kids need driveways, they need playgrounds, and they need backyards. And I know this isn't Mayberry anymore, and we can't go back 25 years and try to bring Andy Griffith back that way. But travel sports have eliminated organic creativity because we have scheduled most everything for our children versus sending them out on their bikes, e-bikes now, and allowing them to play and formulate their own games is so healthy because they're not only becoming creative, but they're becoming owners. They're becoming owners of their own responsibility. And I talked earlier about the maturity factor. That really contributes to greater maturity. And so if your child is involved in travel sports, and ours were, we never tried to foster that. And looking back, we should have. Okay, they're going to have a tough schedule. They're going to have a full calendar. How do we still schedule in those organic moments for our children to become more adept at figuring that out? Wish we would have done that better. Lastly, final remarks. Just a few things before we get into some questions. Sports were created by God, and sports are inherently good. My whole 30 years are involved in athletics. I believe intimately in and I believe passionately about the intimacy of athletics. They do so much good. The question isn't whether sports are good, they are. The question is whether sports are serving our families. And there were times during our journey when they weren't. They just weren't. We were serving sports. I said a moment ago that each family is ultimately going to need to discern what path they take, because every situation is unique unto its own. Really believe that. But when our family stepped away from travel sports, they didn't stop playing. They continued to play, but it was at a more reduced and manageable rate. And they had an advantage that I could coach some sports along the way. But there's other folks in the community who can certainly do that. But they rediscovered joy. We rediscovered Sundays, and we became a lot less tired when we did that. We've never regretted the decision. We also didn't have Division I athletes, and we knew that. Sometimes that's hard to arrive at. Where does my child fit in, and when is it necessary? Hopefully, you have somebody in your life who's speaking reality into that, whether that's the high school coach or somebody else who can really help navigate that. Having been involved in sports for a long time, I just was able to look at my children and say, you're not a Division I athlete, right? So you don't necessarily need to do all of this that's taking place. And lastly, we're raising disciples, not athletes. Sports can accomplish many things, right? And if they begin competing with the hearts and minds of our children, perhaps it's time to rethink the path. But I didn't come to this beautiful part of our country to say, here are the three things that must happen, because every family is unique in and of itself. But is the church in your religious walk with the Lord still your anchor, or are you trying to navigate it and spin plates and juggle balls to make that work? I think that's probably the question I would just put before every family, and have you do an internal audit on really what that looks like so far as travel sports are concerned. Pastor Jordan, we're going to take a little bit of time for questions. How would you like to proceed? That's all I got. That's enough.
If you want to grab that microphone right there. Yeah, so we...
Check. Kentucky.
He's learning, all right? Yeah. Is this good? All right. So when we were talking about how to structure this night, Larissa gave me some wise wife counsel, because I've facilitated lots of Q&As before, and she said, I hate it when you do Q&As and tell everybody you're going to do a Q&A, and then the speaker talks, and then you talk for another 15 or 20 minutes, and then you give like 5 minutes for Q&A. So I've got just a few things I want to say. No, I'm teasing. So we've got about 40 minutes. Now, if you guys don't have any questions, we won't keep you trapped here. But we're interested in sort of kind of pressing into this, and so yeah, I want to open the floor, and while you're kind of thinking, and I know some of you guys have already kind of been thinking about some questions, I want to actually put Sean on the spot. You said something at lunch today about this whole issue and identity, and I'd love for you, if you don't mind, just to take just maybe a minute to talk about what you were referencing in terms of the danger of a child's identity being wrapped up in a particular sport, or so just, if you don't mind, just maybe talk about a moment about this issue of identity. And I'm going to give you the microphone as well. Most everyone will hear you, but I want to catch this as well.
Thanks. I think that comment was, our youngest son now is going into his junior year in college and has a passion and love for golf. And I think we just frequently need to remind him that that is not on the top of, shouldn't be the top priority for him, why he's at school, what his purpose is, that it goes way beyond golf, that is maybe something he will carry on and do for a lifetime, but in time it'll be such a small part of his life. So just a constant reminder to him that that is not who he is. Golf is just something he enjoys doing, but it isn't the man that is gonna, in years to come, it's just gonna be quite insignificant part of his life, really. And so just to keep his focus on the Lord first and his studies, and golf is just a privilege and a blessing for him. It's just a reminder, yeah.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we notice about our children is that as time persists and they move into adulthood, how little they talk about high school, college sports. And it was very meaningful to them. Again, they were fortunate to be on a lot of really good teams in high school. Between the three of them, we counted coming down here, I think they won 6 state championships, 2 runners-up, and were part of numerous other state tournaments. We don't care. It matters not what that looks like. And you're exactly right. The insignificance of what playing athletics collegiately. There's this great, and I forget who, Jordan, who spoke on this, and I heard it on a TED Talk, and I wish I could give this gentleman credit, but he talked about what we're talking about tonight, and he dubbed it the Great Race to Nowhere. That we are running and charging hard. We're not really sure where we're going, but we're just running hard, and we're exhausting ourselves. And I think that's probably what we would love to just leave you with more than anything else, is this great race to nowhere. In years to come, you're not going to talk about the honors and the accolades. You're going to talk about the women and men that the Lord is creating them to be. Sorry to answer some of the question you didn't.
That's good. Thank you. Let me just throw it to you guys. And the reason I'm up here is because just for the sake of the archive, I'll restate your question, or not restate it, but repeat it so that we'll have it. But yeah.
So, 2 things. Number 1, I played in the Schwann's USA Cup in Blaine, Minnesota when I was in high school. I know that complex very well. So, but my question would be, so we've got 3 daughters. My wife and I, this is my oldest. She's getting ready to turn 14. She plays golf for her high school team. She played golf and soccer last year, which was quite they overlapped, and it ran us to death. So she did decide she was just going to play golf this year, and she's talked about wanting to play college golf one day. Her high school coach has encouraged her that that's a possibility. And I know you said play multiple sports. We're very apprehensive to do that just because golf is a very compact season, but it's very high. Those tournaments take a long time, and so we kind of look forward to fall and winter because that's that season of rest. And so she plays recreational volleyball just as it's not clubs, just local kids. Would that qualify in your mind, I guess, as looking back as an athletic director of multiple sports, or I guess you see what I'm saying? Absolutely. Yep. I get it. No.
So let me just, I won't restate the whole question, but the question is related to the question of multi-sports. And specifically in this question, if you have a golfer, how important is multi-sport? But that's the gist of the question.
Yep. Thank you for the question. Put a picture of our oldest son up here earlier. So when we moved from Chicago, after his 7th grade year, we moved to Des Moines, and he attended one of the largest public schools in the state of Iowa. It was a suburban school in Des Moines. He was able to continue to play basketball. He was good enough to do that, but he really wasn't good enough to do cross country, track. certainly not football with his build. And so what we asked him to do was find some things in the community recreation-wise that you can engage in and participate in that keeps you active. And what he did is he joined a couple Frisbee golf leagues and began doing that. Is it structured like a school setting? No, but it sufficed. And to your question, I think that's good. I think recreation is good. The whole premise behind it is interacting with different people and having different people speak into their lives, while at the same time trying to rest certain muscles and ligaments and tendons during a season that way. So,
Yes.
All right, so you spoke about travel ball, and our son plays travel baseball. He's 9, will be 10. Very new to that world. He also plays rec league, but he has this passion for sports. He plays numerous, well, not numerous, he plays flag football and he plays basketball on the side for rec. But I guess where I'm struggling is there a space where playing these sports allows our kids to develop their discipleship? Because personally, with my son, I've seen him, he draws a cross before every at bat, and his friends will ask, and he says, "Has God with me?" Or he's got batting gloves that I recently bought him that have crosses, and he used that in the dugout to tell his friends. So I feel like there are benefits of sports, and we always do make a point to be at church on Wednesdays and Sundays. That's been our non-negotiable for the most part. But I guess where is the line? Where you're giving them an avenue to build those leadership skills and build those skills, because we weren't seeing them built the way we wanted or felt he needed in the rec league, just for that. So you want to push and feed that passion, but also, yeah, where's the line?
Yeah, so I'll sort of compact the question. Is there overlap? Can we use the sports that our kids are part of to be a light to the teams that they're on? That's a piece of the question. And then, if I understood you right, Kelsey, maybe another layer of this, maybe even a second question is what is the uptick value of travel, like a travel team, versus just being a part of a school team and or a rec team? Did that catch it? Okay.
Kelsey, thanks for your question. It's a loaded question. It's the $1 million question, right? It's like all these folks who write books on leadership, and the fact that there are millions of books written on leadership means that we haven't really figured it out per se. I think your question is an excellent one. How do we keep that fire burning, don't let it go out, but yet push them and give them the opportunities to play so that they get better and mature, while at the same time using sport as a way to disciple? That's a sense, yeah. I think the things that I spoke about earlier for us was the unsaid red flags. What are they not telling you? And sometimes we don't, as parents, we didn't want to see it, the waning as they played. But if your son is still flourishing, thriving, and really enjoying play, enjoying sport, and you're not having to push him, then I think you're in a good place. Peak dropout is 12. We want to get him into high school where he is still invigorated to play. And if that means playing a full high-octane travel season, okay, if he can handle it. But if he can't, dial back so that when he's 14, 15, and 16 and able to take in those experiences. Only you, as his mother, can really read that, right? And that's where we talk about the differentiation between what that looks like on the family. No one else can really speak into it, but you can see the subtleties that begin to move a little bit. And as parents, where we struggled, we didn't see the subtleties because we were too enamored at times with the whole experience. And we had blinders on, I guess you could say, and maybe we didn't want to see it because it was fun for us as parents, and maybe wasn't quite as fun for our children. Probably the best advice I can give you. Yeah.
Yeah, Jonathan. So what advice for parents who kind of feel pressure to keep a kid in year-round sports or in club teams, travel ball teams?
John, that's your name? John, where do you feel that pressure is coming from? Is it coming from the school? Is it coming from just a society as a whole? Yeah.
So I'm going to repeat that real quick. Just sort of this operating assumption, and I don't know, do you guys get that? Because the ship is a little bit sailed for us, right? But do you guys feel like that's a little bit accurate? Do you guys feel that pressure? What? Okay. Okay, so for the sake of the archive, and then you can respond however you want to, the conversation point here is, is sort of this unspoken expectation, depending on the sport. Like if you want to play for your school at the high school level, you really need to be playing travel ball kind of at the elementary level. So whatever you want to say to that.
Yeah, very good. Can I ask a qualifying question? In Kentucky, what are the stipulations on contact from the high school with the student athletes in the summertime, off season? Can they work with them as much as they want? Except the dead period.
Yeah, which is 2 weeks, correct?
Which is 2 weeks. Okay. The question is really an excellent one, and I asked, the pervading question earlier of where's the pressure coming from, and it sounds like the school is applying a little bit of pressure. In an ideal situation, you have a school that offers a very comprehensive off-season program, and that will nullify a lot of the issues that I think you're talking about. For our children, they attended a school where the expectation in June was our children would play 18 days of basketball with their school team in the month of June. And we signed up for that. And we were okay with that. And it was better than the alternative of having a poor program at the school and having to have them do a lot of travel ball. So what am I saying? To apply a little bit of just pressure and having a comprehensive school program for the children to be involved in really nullifies a lot of the problems that sometimes are associated with travel ball. And maybe you can't fix it. Maybe there's no other way to do it. And at that point, it really becomes a situation where you as a family are going to have to decide priorities and rank them. And for us, we changed that as time went on. We flipped the paradigm a little bit on that because we wanted to do vacations in the summertime again, and we wanted to have meals together at night. But there's no doubt that there absolutely are cause and effects with having to choose how much you want to invest in a high school experience that way. That's probably the best answer I can give you, and that is exert a little bit of pressure on the high school to have a comprehensive program where there's a scope and a sequence where there's a varsity, sub-varsity, however you categorize it, and it goes into the junior high so that they can have a reach there to take the pressures off families from having to go out and be part of a travel team.
Please. So let me hit two things there that I'd like for you to kind of press into. So first of all, just real quick for archive, from a coach's perspective, at least a local high school coach's perspective, he's saying that there's not sort of necessarily a litmus test, of having to play travel ball at a younger age. So if you could speak really quick to the scholarship question, kind of press into that a little bit, because hey, we see in the paper all the time now, hey, this student signed with this college, this student signed with this college. In reality, like, are those substantive? Are those worth the investment that you make over years of, weekends in hotels, travel ball team fees, like from a investment return perspective, what's the reality there? And then what's the attrition rate when you get there?
Yeah, a lot of great questions there. You mentioned Tiger Woods. We call it the Tiger Woods phenomenon, right? He went on That's Incredible with Fran Tarkenton in the late 1970s, and they had this little 3-4-year-old kid who was playing golf. And at that point in time, it became very apparent to a lot of parents around the country that if I start them earlier, then they're going to be better later. If you want to look at data with how you start children earlier and what it really leads to, take a look at the number of children who have played in the Little League World Series and how many of them actually made it to the major leagues. Minuscule, because those kids are little men at the age of 12 who are popping fastballs. By the time they're 16 and 17, they don't have that edge anymore. So there's that growth thing, the Tiger Woods phenomenon. I've worked with baseball coaches in Chicago and in Des Moines, excellent baseball programs. The high school coaches do not care whatsoever about travel ball. In fact, they roll their eyes at it. They roll their eyes at it because daddy ball is taking precedent. All they care about, the high school coach, is he coachable? And is he going to have a good experience for me when he gets to me at the age of 15, 16, 17, whatever that might look like? They are not scouring, from my experiences, they are not scouring and taking a look at what 11, 12, 13, and 14-year-olds are doing so far as the travel baseball rosters are concerned. They just don't care at all. The ROI on scholarships. We see it published in papers all the time. We see it put on social media. Understand, colleges are trying to drive enrollment by way of collegiate athletics. When I started at Dordt in 2009, we had 375 student athletes. When I left in 2023, we had 750 student athletes. All the schools, private schools, and some state schools are driving enrollment through the use of collegiate athletics. It's their best lever. And so they're giving very nominal, partial scholarships for most everything. And yes, there's the signing in the paper, there's the post on social media, but it's not explaining how much that scholarship is worth, and nor is there ever a follow-up 2, 3, 4 years later indicating where that said student athlete is at. Are they still playing? And the vast majority are not. And that's why I talked earlier about having a fresh collegiate athlete come in who's being able to persevere and have a little bit of grit to stay on and give themselves, at the age of 21, a better chance to be able to play.
For an example, you realize Lindsey Wilson baseball, that's a small NAI, about 30 minutes of room, has over 80
Yep.
kids on it. A few years ago, they did not have football. Like I said, they bring in football, it's 100 players, band, cheerleaders down the line for money.
There's some Division III football programs who have over 150 kids in the program. Right?
See it in the paper, but you don't.
Tina?
So just some advice that was given to me by the very wise Terry Reed several years ago. And here, Terry is a legend in the cross country world. He told me years ago when our kids were running, he said, I'm going to tell you, his grandson has just gotten a scholarship for cross country. He said, my advice to
You want a very fresh and vibrant person who at the age of 18 steps onto a college campus, because the next 4 years are going to be very grueling. That's the reality, and no one tells you that in the recruiting process. At Dordt University, we're a Christian college, distinctly Christian college, not name only. We would take Sundays off. Sundays we wouldn't practice. But most everybody else in the NAI was on Sundays, and it was seven days a week is how they operated. And when we take a look at duration, and we talk about the travel team playing 5-6 games in a weekend, we don't do that to professional athletes because they're a commodity we can't wreck, right? We can't do that. We just don't do it. We don't do it for basketball. Okay? We don't do it, obviously, for football. But even a catcher in the major leagues probably isn't going to catch on Saturday night and catch Sunday afternoon. We give them that break. Or if they catch Friday night and there's a day game on Saturday afternoon, we're probably not going to catch them there either. Those are breaks built in. But we don't think about that with travel baseball because we need them to play. We need them to play because we have to justify the cost of admission and the team entry fee. So that's a little bit of where your organizers are taking advantage of kids.
So mine is not really a question. It's more of like, I want to pick your brain about it. So you mentioned something about, making your schedule work around church or making church work around your schedule. And, people will say, we make sure we make it to church on Wednesday and Sunday. But Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, they're at a ball field or in a gym or, passing each other on the road, taking one kid here and one kid there. So what are your thoughts on the dangers of that? Is that actually stewarding your relationship with the Lord and your church well by just showing up on Wednesday and showing up on Sunday?
Yeah, personally, thanks for the question. It's a magnificent question. Right? Who are we really idolizing? And where are we really devoting our attention? If we had to do it all over again, we would have dropped out of travel sports a whole lot earlier and spent a lot more time together as a family in the summertime and during the and in the evenings. We compromised a lot. And our children were going to play NAI, NCAA Division II sports no matter what because of the DNA. No matter what we did, they were never going to play Division I. Maybe our youngest could have golfed Division I if we said that's all you're going to do. But so what? What does that even mean, and what is that even worth? To say that you were a Division I golfer at the expense of ... And so, yeah, the Bible talks about first fruits. Can we bring our best to the Lord on Sunday and Wednesday and be disciples through the rest of the week when we are basically chained to a schedule? It's really hard. Right? It's really hard. And for us, we did a poor job of it for about 5-6 years.
And just to be, that question that he was responding to was to Katie's question about, okay, even if you safeguard Sunday and Wednesday, but you're running yourself ragged on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, it's not just a church question. It's a quality of life with your family question as well,
There's no time for discipleship. There's no time for study in the Word.
Yeah.
There's, sometimes there's not even time for prayer because your mind is so, and I say that because we've lived it,
Yeah.
and sometimes we do live that, and it is a struggle for us. Like, we have to safeguard other parts of our lives, not just Wednesday and Sunday.
And Sean raised our kids for the better part of that stretch, right? Because she was the one doing a lot of running. I was the assistant principal and boys basketball coach. So a lot of that fell on her. And I didn't get much car time with them. I certainly didn't get much dinner time with them. And so there was obviously compromises and there are regrets. And which is why I'm in Glasgow, Kentucky on a Sunday night in July talking about this.
For
right?
real. I mean, that's
honestly,
honestly, it's amazing that you're here. I mean, I see 2 or 3 more hands, so I want to get to them. Really quick, just to be crystal clear, you never pulled your kids out of sports.
We never pulled them out of
Correct.
sports, Jordan. We never pulled them out of travel sports. But we reduced the travel. We did pull them out for a season, but we reduced it. I became my oldest son's basketball coach and our youngest son's basketball coach, and we hand-selected and we picked. And we made Sunday the priority, and we made dinner a priority, and you just reconfigured all of that. And I understand a lot of families can't do that because I was able to do that as my profession. But there's other people who it's their profession and passion, and you can ask them perhaps to lean into. We're only limited by our own creativity. And travel sports is not creative. It's a organized system that, and it goes back, John, to your question, we don't need to be chained to it. That's our decision, whether or not we want to be chained to it.
We're going to point you at the very end to a resource page that we've created. There's a podcast that he's on that talks about a stat that was insane, and you have to go and listen to it to get the actual stat, because I'm going from memory. But talking about travel ball, it's a business model now, and like the travel ball industry in the U.S. is like a $20 billion industry, and the NCAA gives out like $2 billion of scholarships every year. You know what I'm saying? So like it was insane to kind of see it through that lens or whatever. Aaron, did you have your hand up back there? Sorry, I didn't mean to call you out there. Yeah, Cody, sorry. Yeah, I remember you.
Appreciate you coming out and the time that you shared with us. My question is around the purpose that we have as parents is obviously to share the gospel with our children, and then once they accept Christ as Savior, to work with them in that discipleship process. What are some things that maybe you saw then or you saw now before you made the decision to pull back from sports that were negatively impacting the discipleship of your kids as compared to maybe some of the positive things that you saw in your kids' lives when you made that decision to pull back in their discipleship or the sharing of the gospel?
Yeah, what was some of the negative things that they were seeing that led to your family's decision to pull back?
Great question. We touched on it a little bit ago about the bandwidth a parent has to parent well. When we talk about discipleship and enhancing the walk of our children, it begins in the home. And if we are chained to a schedule and we are very tired and worn down from all week, even if we're getting to church, but I can't parent well, then there begins to see a suffering there. And so I would tell you, I wasn't the dad that I should have been, because we were running around at tournaments and everything was succinctly aligned. And that was with 2 kids. That was before our tail ender even came along. And so we knew that we just were not parenting very well. And that was one. The other, and I hope I touched on it enough, but it was the things that our kids were saying to us and the red flags that we were not catching, that really at some point we realized they don't really like this as much as we like it, and they certainly don't enjoy it as much as they used to. And at that point in time, it became very apparent to us that we can't do this. We can't do this for another 5 or 6 years as our youngest comes through. So we greatly reduced what we did, and in some cases we removed them. No.
Yeah. I'm sorry, Emily. Go ahead.
Well, first of all, I just wanted to say, like, to all of you all that, Clint played Division I basketball. He couldn't be here tonight, but, before our kids were even born, he decided that our kids would not play on Wednesday or Sunday ever. So, we miss one Wednesday a year for our national tournament, but other than that, we don't miss church. So if you feel compelled to make that choice, you're not
So is there,
we're not willing to compromise. So we're trying to work through that. How can we help him if he does want to play college basketball, if it's possible for him? Is there a way to help him navigate that does not include some missing church?
so if Sunday mornings are a non-negotiable for my family, but my kid is, on a legitimately potential path to college ball, is there a way to do that and maintain that commitment to Sundays?
Yeah, great question. Had a conversation with a young man earlier this summer who wanted to play college basketball. And he didn't want to, his parents and him decided they didn't want to do the travel scene. And so what does that look like if that's what you want for your child? And more importantly, if that's what the child wants for him or herself? Because they have to really own that process from the time they're 18 to the time they're 22 or 23. Colleges are going to be rather enamored with a student athlete or prospective student athlete if they did not play college sports but have an ardent desire to play, or if they didn't play travel ball but have an ardent desire to play collegiate sports, because they know they're going to get somebody who's fresh. And so understand that that's pretty appealing to a college coach. So how do you put yourself in front of a college coach and get yourself in line for a scholarship? I think one of the mistakes that I've seen a lot of prospective student athletes make over the years is they just cast a very broad net on the recruiting process, when in fact they may have a degree or a field of study they want to go into. That will probably drive a little bit where you want to go to school. For example, engineering. Not everybody has engineering. If they wanted to be pre-med or pre-law, there are certain schools that are better for that. Certainly education and business, that's a broader net. But I think my point is there are disciplines that would drive that. Most colleges have camps in the summertime that they utilize for recruiting purposes. In fact, that's when most of the scholarships are given out, is at college summer camps. Whether that's NAIA, Division III, Division II, or not necessarily so much Division I, but sometimes Division I, depending on the sport. But they use those summer camps as an opportunity to really showcase your abilities. Get to those summer camps. Be selective about the summer camps. A highlight video and a resume, a 3 to 4 minute highlight video and a resume depicting the different things that you were involved with in high school, leadership opportunities, work experiences. Send those to prospective college coaches. They really appreciate that. And if there's follow-up on your part in that regard, that's always helpful too. My point is, families can control that recruiting process a whole lot more than what they think. It's not about getting on a travel team and playing in front of a bunch of coaches who may or may not realize that you're even on the roster, but really putting yourself in front of said coach, said school, and making them aware that you have legitimate interest in playing collegiate sports at their school. So, happy to talk further about that later, because I think that's something that's very underutilized by families, to really take control of that process.
Yeah, just one quick thing from our experience, very briefly, and we can't speak from the travel ball experience because we chose not to go that route with our kids, but our kids were very involved with the high school, with the high school sports. But even those, as you guys know, start encroaching on Wednesdays. And when Hudson was sort of at the height of soccer stuff, where he went to high school, I remember. They had a game in Bowling Green on Easter Sunday at 1:00 in Bowling Green. And the way that we navigated that as a family is we were up front with the coach before the season started. And we said something like this: listen, our kids are not going to be available on Wednesday nights, and they're not going to be available on Sundays. And we totally recognize that might have some consequences for playing time. We're not asking for any special favors. He'll be here all the other times. He'll put in the work, and he was never punished for it. Now when he missed a Wednesday practice or didn't go to a Sunday game, he didn't start the next game. So there was a small consequence, But because he put in the work, the coach would like let 5 minutes go by and then go ahead and put him in. You know what I'm saying? And so my point is that our coach, even though he was kind of a drill sergeant, kind of year-round program guy, they actually appreciated on the front end us just being clear where we were kind of putting our line in the sand as a family, and the fact that we were sort of getting in front of the 8 ball and telling him that we weren't expecting special favors. You know what I'm saying? That we were okay with the fact that that probably would have some impact on his role on the team. You know? Yes, sir.
Don't be scared of your high school coach. We're very fortunate here versus probably where you're at. Is you go to your coach and you tell him that church comes first. I promise you, John Myers, you name the coaches here, are not going to hold that against you. They're not. They're going to respect it. I'm surprised. Soccer in Glasgow, rain out. Is that why you played on the Sunday? That was a big mess. That was a big mess, and a lot of people were upset. It was odd, but if you go and tell that coach, I was fortunate enough to coach with a guy named Sam Royce. Me and you go. That's first. That's first. We actually, and I don't mean to bring it up, but is Mr. Mudd still here? His wife passed away. No, I coached his son Charlie. Charlie was a junior, great athlete, better kid than he was anything. He comes to us one day and says, "Coach, I can't be here at practice tomorrow. Why, Charlie? I got to babysit my sister." You think we're gonna punish that kid? You think we're gonna not play him when that young man comes and says, "I have to babysit my sister when he's lost his mother"? If your coach is gonna punish you for that, then I wouldn't play the sport. Just to be honest with you. But we're fortunate here to have coaches. Most of these teams are supposed to have an FCA sponsor too. So if you feel like you're missing out and stuff, right, AJ? Correct? Yes, everybody kind of has. That's all about what the coach wants to put into it. But there's FCA, and for, to get involved in that, that's a great place. Of course, once you get to the high school level at that. But don't be scared of these coaches. They're human beings. They are. They're going to respect the kid and his religion. We don't have any anti-Christians coaching our kids around here. I don't think so. So be honest with them. They're going to respect it. They're going to respect it.
And I think something we miss out on, you missed the thought on a lot. Even if the coach does, if that's something the Lord has planned for that kid, he's going to get it regardless. She's going to get it regardless. If that's in their plans, one coach standing in the way of their relationship with the Lord is not going to hinder his plan.
And there's something to be said from like our experiences. There are coaches out there that specifically look for one-day tournaments so that Sunday's not touched. Is that few and far between? In some cases, yes, but it does exist. It's just a matter of being upfront with them and encouraging the kid in both realms, both their Christian walk and allowing them to have opportunities to achieve their goal. And
Wes.
that's all on us.
Yeah, sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off there.
This one's more of a personal one. So, like I played soccer, basketball, lacrosse, tennis. I love sports. Always have. I have 3 daughters. They're not as passionate as me, but we want them to find something. And so we have one that's found golf in the last few years. Our middle child has started swimming. Our youngest is, I'm not really sure if she's going to find something. Did any of your kids like have, you were like, are they going to play sport? Like, we want to encourage movement. I'm just interested because we've got one more that it's kind of like anything she tries, we're not interested.
And hoping for one more girl, right? No, because I was just.
Well, I will tell you, college golf, female college golfers are the easiest sport in college to scholarship. In other words, there's not the pool of female golfers moving from high school, matriculating from high school to college, is the least of any sport, any gender. So for whatever that's worth, it is a little bit easier that way. Yes, we have 3 kids. There is a vast difference in their passion for sports amongst the 3 of them. Our daughter was the grittiest. Our youngest son, probably right there. But our oldest son, not as much. Not as much. Was it because we pushed him hard in travel ball? Yeah, maybe. I don't know. But there are definitely differences between levels of passion. I don't think as a parent you can fan that a whole lot beyond what you're already doing. I mean, they know that you're in an athletic-minded family. They know those opportunities are there, and they're going to seize them if they want them. And if they don't, just encourage you as a parent to help them become great at something else. But there's enough exposure to athletics for our children for them to develop that passion indirectly. And if they want it, those opportunities are going to present themselves to them in that way. In other words, you're going to know. Yeah, it'll reveal itself pretty succinctly. It's a wonderful question. And
The question is related to mental health in college athletics.
Yep, outstanding question, Larissa. I'll back up a little bit and then answer the question. I think as parents, we have to be very diligent about creating responsible and ethical and independent young people by the time they're 18. If we're taking a look at youth sports and really trying to factor in the role they play to the crescendo at age 18, and we're ready to drop them off for college or work or whatever it looks like, how are we nurturing and equipping to that point? Are we really cultivating that independence in them well? That, I think, is something that we really need to examine. And I think that there has been an absolute drift away from that. When I started in Dordt in 2009, I could talk to a recruit on the phone for 15 minutes, and it was very easy. Cell phones became more prominent. When I was finished coaching in 2018, to hold a recruit's attention on the phone and have them communicate well for 4 minutes was a big challenge. They would rather text. Okay? And so understanding that we still have to lean into those desires that the students have of moving away from being good communicators and being responsible, that's something we just have to combat culture with really well that way. We start to see some things over Thanksgiving break, over Christmas break, where they may be off just a little bit. Developing a really good relationship with your child's roommate to be able to ask a few questions is good. To have even a little bit of an open correspondence with your child's roommate's parents is sometimes good as well, because sometimes they will convey something to your child's roommate will convey something to their own parents that maybe you can check up on. And so it's about becoming highly relational and moving out just a little bit from the sphere of just your own child while they're at college, because you're going to need some other people in their purview that are going to have to be able to provide some type of feedback as to how they're doing, because you're right, your child is going to become very adept at being able to tell you exactly what it is they want to hear. And you're not encroaching, you're not being unfair, you're just simply concerned about their well-being. So enlarging that sphere of influence and being able to work with your child and their roommate, their advisor, those are questions to ask. Certainly there's certain laws that permit parents from contacting the college and asking. We understand that. But there is a way to really work around that and circumvent it in a way that's healthy and that's above reproach if we want to. But yeah, to keep your eyes on your college children very closely, because things begin to change at the age of 19 for them in many regards in terms of their well-being. And so to be very cognizant of it and to be highly sensitive to it is very important. And it's at that moment you realize travel ball didn't mean a lot. And we can speak to that as well, right? That you're using travel ball to develop disciples, not to get another means to an end.
We're going to need to finish it just because we've got some young ones in the kids zone. Now, we tricked Ross and his wife and got them an Airbnb in Glasgow tonight, so he's obligated to stay here as long as you guys have any
Absolutely.
other questions for him. Let me just kind of wrap up on a pastoral note. We'll pray together, and then I have one last quick question that everybody wants to know that they've not asked yet, and I'll ask it. So what you said, you used a really critical word in one of the things that you said, Katie, and it's the question of stewardship.